Welcome back to another episode of Sexy Marriage Radio. And the opposite of last week when we came from the Texas deep freeze, now it's short sleeves.
Yeah.
The
short
way
sleeves
the
and
weather
shorts.
goes. Texas, if you don't like the weather, just wait 36 hours. That seems to be the way
That's
it
true.
goes. This is Sexy Marriage Radio, where we're trying to have straightforward, honest conversations where everything is out in the open that we'll talk about. Which the reason I'm phrasing it this way is because today's episode is all about the world of covert contracts, which, none of us have ever done in life.
Insert sarcasm here. Yes.
Total sarcasm, because this is a common aspect of what happens in married life, where if I do X, then I'll get Y. It's that exchange-based kind of mentality, but it's not spoken. It's just done. And so to set the stage, we'll talk about it from an email, and let's just jump right in. The email came to feedback@sexymarriageradio.com, by the way. If you want to ask a question for your situation or let us know how this goes, and we'll continue the dialogue that way. But this says, hey, Corey and Pam, longtime listener, and I could use your help. I'm the guy who does the cooking, cleaning, and all the partnership stuff. And honestly, I thought I was doing marriage right. But our sex life is basically non-existent, and I'm starting to realize I've been playing a game I didn't even know I was playing. So here's the deal. Somewhere along the way, I started keeping score, which guilty. I've done that as well.
Yeah, it's pretty common.
Like if I do enough helpful stuff, shouldn't that lead to more sex? Well, it turns out no. The answer is pretty much always not tonight, and I'm left feeling frustrated and resentful, which I hate about myself. I want to stop this. I want to retire the imaginary punch card that I've been carrying around so long. So here's what I'm trying to figure out. These are the questions I have for you guys. How do I show up as a good spouse without turning everything into a transaction? What actually creates attraction? Because being nice and useful clearly doesn't cut it. How do I initiate sex in a way that's direct but not pressuring, and then handle rejection without turning into a pouty scorekeeper? So I need help understanding what desire with integrity actually looks like. That's a great way to phrase this. I like that kind of phraseology right there. So how do I want my wife without making it feel like an obligation that she owes me? Thanks. I'm interested in your thoughts. And he signed it, the chief dishwasher in charge. So,
Nice.
So here's the plan. In the regular version, I figure let's cover the first two questions in this. We'll talk a little bit about covert contracts, what they are. And then we'll go through the first two questions he's got. And then the extended content today, which is deeper, longer, and no ads, you can subscribe at smr.fm/academy. We'll talk about how do you do this? How do you initiate sex without the pressure and handle rejections well?
Okay.
So when you think of the world of covert contracts, what comes to your mind? Just because I just want to make sure we have some clarity and clarification of the terminology we're using.
Covert contract sounds to me like this is something I'm expecting. This is maybe how the system of our marriage has played out over the years. If I do this for you, you do that for me, but we haven't necessarily spoken it. It's just kind of how it's played out.
And
is that
yeah,
what it
and
is?
there's a component of relationships that this is just evident in a lot of ways, that if I do certain things, it will afford me some things in return. Some of that is just the way we are as humans. Economies are built on this. I work a certain number of hours, I get paid a certain number of hours. The difference is that's likely in a contract of some sort.
Yeah, something written that you both agreed to.
If I add additional effort and I go above and beyond, I maybe get myself a promotion.
Maybe.
And so there's a component of relationship dynamics that has this evident in it, just by the nature of us as humans and the way our brains in our society work. Okay. So I want to start with validating and acknowledging he's recognizing some of the different things he's doing, which good on him. He's a good partner, because good partners carry weight in a relationship, because somebody's got to do the different aspects of a relationship dynamic and running a household and running a family and running a marriage. Somebody carries more weight than the other in different aspects and different topics within it.
I mean, I think those are two different points. He's carrying the weight. I think the bigger point there is he's asking the questions.
Yes.
To your initial point of what he's emailing for.
Well,
right?
he's seeing,
trying to take ownership.
He's seeing that the weight I'm carrying isn't affording me the things I really do wish it would get me, rather than how do I see what I'm doing is part of maybe who I want to be. And I can have something that I'm hoping happens from it. But when I get tied to it, then it becomes a contract. When I get where I'm expectant of things from you because of the way I'm conducting myself without being upfront about what I'm hoping for, it's a covert contract. Because we all have this idea, right? I mean, the one thing I think of, I don't know, I just now I'm thinking of this, this may go off the rails, but the whole world of the contract of nicety that happens and social dynamics that happen of, you host a party and it's a graduation party for our kids. And then we have our kids write thank you notes as a courtesy for what it is that had people show up and give them. And that's
typically you give a gift when you come to a party.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a positive, edifying aspect of society. But it's still a dynamic that is just kind of an undercurrent of that's the way these relationships go. Well, marriage just takes this tenfold of we have all these different things that I know in the past would have worked. If I take you on a date, I have a greater likelihood of it could wind up in some sex happening later during that night. But there are times as you get longer.
Are we equating a thank you card to sex at night?
Well, some of the things in the way he's phrasing this is I would like a thank you and a recognition and a payment of some form for what I'm doing in our marriage. That's kind of the fuel that's setting the stage. And it's clear in this, he's the higher desire partner when it comes to sex. So therefore she's the lower desire. And so now it's recognizing, okay, this dynamic is just getting further ingrained between them. And so one of the issues with covert contracts is that it becomes this exchange based things. But what we really do want is we want to feel desired, and you can't cultivate desire through an exchange rate component, right? Because then it's always this element of you didn't have to, oh, it's okay. It becomes, it almost diminishes what I'm getting because I realized, God, I had to work so hard to get that, right? And so this is where it's insidious for both partners. That's the point I want to try to make, just to start.
Okay.
Is it creates a dynamic that's really difficult for both spouses, not just the person leading the charge with the covert contract.
Okay.
But the one thing that's recognizing is what we do in relationships. This is an idea from Esther Perel that she said. She has a quote that says, we often want to feel secure in our relationship, but we also want the freedom to have desire in our relationship. And security and desire don't always fuel each other well.
No. I mean, my definition of security may not necessarily have anything to do with physical or a sexual aspect. Right. Am I going to have someone to come home to? Are they going to have integrity? Or there's all kinds of different definitions people have for their own security.
And security also is fueled by this idea of I cultivate an environment that feels comfortable and safe and consistent and provided for. And so some of this is where for him specifically, it's recognizing some of what he may be doing. Because I recognize a lot of what he's describing of I'm doing a lot of good things that are quote unquote being a really good spouse, and I would like something in return. I totally understand this thought process from the way I have been in life at different stages.
Your definition of a really good spouse, right?
Well,
and so each spouse has a different definition.
Fair,
of that,
absolutely. But it's like I'm cultivating something that is part of what I see as being a good spouse, but I have something attached to it. And so it's realizing one of the ways you start recognizing and breaking this is you get to the point where you see it as, wait, this is the person I want to be. I want to be the one that cooks more. I want to be the one that has the providing of different things more. And so let that be. Let that be the desire that should lead you of this is who I want to be. And it's less, and then you start untangling it from what do I get in return?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the focus is what you're getting in return, it's like, again, our definition of expectations, planned disappointments. And how often do you actually get in return what you're expecting to get? if it's not in a written contract, like at work, when we're talking about here, or I'm selling something and here's my contract, here's the price I'm going to get for the product I'm giving you. But if you've got the word covert in there at all in these contracts, there's not a real actual agreement of what's to come from this.
And this is where it becomes troublesome when we start talking about a marriage context, because obviously covert wreaks all kinds of downfalls and pitfalls and struggles. But so does the word contract.
Well, yeah. I mean,
in marriage, right?
Okay.
Because it's not this
I said I would do this
obligation of things that on a whole, the relationship has some things that are just, you're signing on, you're saying I do with some understanding of these are things that are likely that distinguish a relationship that's a marriage from all other relationships. But when I treat it like a contract, man, it's a hierarchy that's really problematic, to say the least. And so the whole point for his first question is, how do I show up as a good spouse without turning everything into a transaction? Is you start just recognizing, to answer this specifically, you start recognizing what are the different things you do that you see I have things tied to it. And I at least then start to just be more upfront about, these are things I'm looking for in my marriage, but going through the route of trying to earn them won't work. Be somebody that is inviting of that and then seeking it. So it's out in the open more.
Yeah. That's where desire can come from, right? As opposed to,
Because he's not being transparently generous is one way to think about it.
Okay.
Versus just being generous.
Wait, what's the difference?
He's not being transparently generous. So he has stuff tied to it. So be transparent about it. Be upfront about, this is who I want to be. I want to be somebody that provides a good environment for my household. I want to be somebody that serves my wife in generous ways, and then be more and more aware of how tied to what I'm hoping for to be reciprocated. What is that? And so I can be more upfront about, here's the dynamic I've got going on, that I've cultivated this exchanged rate mentality, this transactional process. So I can be more upfront about realizing I'm going to lead towards what it is I'm hoping I could maybe get, but then I've got to be clean about, I let go of an expectation I will get it. I will handle whatever happens.
Yeah. So do the good you want to do, and 100% separate from that, seek what it is you want.
Right.
Don't seek what it is you want because I'm doing the good that I want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is where it's become so interesting, because if you look at throughout the last couple of decades, if you will, with the different marriage books that have been out there, that there are a lot of them trying to figure out, how do I crack the code that cultivates desire while still being a good partner and spouse and provider and all the different things of being a good person. Right?
Okay.
And there's not a code. There's no key to this thing, because desire is this elusive thing. That's the one of the things I love about Esther Perel's framework, is desire is what exists in the space between us. And if you're constantly hovering and scorekeeping, there's less space between you, because things are tied to outcomes. So you're constantly gauging, monitoring, adjusting, manipulating, trying to figure out ways to cultivate something that you're hoping will naturally cultivate. And when it does cultivate, you're always then in the back of your mind wondering, is this just payment for things, or is this actually something they're wanting to be a part of? And it becomes problematic for both of you. And so it's realizing, how do you acknowledge your own growth through the development of yourself, that you lead the charge like you're describing of, you're still seeking what you want in the sexual arena, the desire arena. You're cultivating something you believe that is desirable while still being a good spouse as you see it. Someone that handles whatever it is. If you're the chief dishwasher in charge, well, okay, then do that in really good ways. Just be that.
Enjoy a clean kitchen.
But that's it. That's the reward in and of itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what you've created. then you start to see, how do I then bring energy into intensifying the other area that I'm wishing it would work out? Because that's his last question, or his second question was, what actually creates attraction? Because being nice and useful clearly isn't cutting it. Well, it's attraction for a marital level on just a base level of a relationship. It creates safety. It creates comfort. It creates a dynamic of friendship. It creates a dynamic of companionship. That's still an attraction.
Yeah, when we're both doing our part, that makes you a desirable spouse.
Right.
In yes, you are someone that is good to be married to.
Right.
Right. Maybe not the sexual desire arena that it sounds like we're trying to get at.
Absolutely, because that's what he's trying to figure out, is how do I now get it to that arena where it totally energizes my spouse in erotic ways, in arousal ways, that there's an intrigue there, there's a desire there, there's a something. And that's that gap that is always existent in marriages. How do we do that? And so the best way, when you can start to become the person that this is just who I like being, and you let that be the fuel in and of itself, as far as all the different aspects of the roles he's playing in his marriage, that recognize the ones that those are just who you really want to be, and distinguish those from the ones that you have things tied to it, and either let go of the things that you have things tied to, or own them better and just be that. And then start to be somebody that also is creating and cultivating something that is leaning towards the sexual by how you lead yourself there, how you invite there, how you instigate towards that. That's the difference. Because there's that whole adage out there called chore play that has been around for decades.
Yeah, you've got episodes on it too.
Right.
Yeah.
That if I do the dishes, boy, that's going to be a turn on. I actually just saw a couple of reels on the YouTube shorts on that very thing.
Yeah.
And so it's still kind of permeating our society, that if I was just a good person that takes care of the laundry, boy, that'll turn her on. And there will be some that absolutely that would. But a majority of the people I've worked with, no, it doesn't.
No, I just expect you to help, right? We're both in this together. That's just an expectation that you're going to help around the house.
Right. And so this is about, how do you do things that are more intentional to create and cultivate a mood, rather than doing things that you hope does that? Because just creating an environment doesn't necessarily translate into a sexual mood.
No, it doesn't.
Right. Because I can have really bad timing I could cultivate the perfect environment at the house that you come home to, that history would show has a good likelihood of creating something in the desirable sexual arena. But the timing was bad because traffic was really bad and the day was really rough and you're stressed and you were talking to somebody on the way home that really got your mind going off of a different direction. And you walk in and just like, well, this looks really nice. And then just go around and start blowing out candles. Because it's like, I'm exhausted. And I could take that as, oh God, nothing I do is right, rather than, wow, my timing was just bad. That just stunk. The world got in the way.
Yeah, 100% out of your control.
Right. That's where, when we do the scorekeeping thing, we don't allow for other variables that aren't at play and anywhere in my control. It's actually shift it from giving to get into the world of, I'm just giving because this is who I want to be. And when you start carrying yourself that way, that's a cleaner pressure of the dynamic between you.
Absolutely. Think of it when you're given something, you talk about mapping and things, we map our spouses. We know when they've done something for us just because they're expecting something in return.
Absolutely.
And to the point about desire here, that just squashes desire. If it's an expectation that the only reason they're doing this is because they want something, they're not doing it for me.
Right. And so then keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, they're not doing it for me. They're just really ultimately doing it for themselves. So it feels a little bit more like a selfish move for them. So that it can be interpreted that way. Mm-hmm. Talk about squashing desire.
Absolutely. And to be clear, I think it's important to clarify that there's a percentages of both going on in all these equations. I'm doing some things because it is to my benefit, and it is something for me, but it also is to the betterment of a relationship, the betterment of a person. So it's much more nuanced than this is just solely driven by them. Well, not completely. It could be majoritely, yes. And so it's just realizing how do we, because if I get into this idea of it's only just for them and they don't want this for me at all, well, then I get very, very reactionary rather than hold on. Some of the motivation in there is still coming from good places. It just has been skewed in how it's coming out.
Yeah, I want the connection with you. I'm trying to figure out how we can have this connection.
Right.
And this is a way in the past I figured out we could have this connection. So yes, I enjoy it, but I also enjoy the time with you.
Right.
So each side can skew it. We got to open our eyes to what the real story is.
Right. And so then it comes down to how do I start to cultivate this better? It really comes down to a confidence, an integrity, a genuineness that still expresses emotion. And that's where we'll get to in just a second with the extended content, because this is where it gets interesting, because a lot of times it feels like when I'm talking with couples, and this is a component that we're starting to try to let's just unpack this and get this out in the open more, right? Because that's the one thing, if you want to start squashing and getting rid of covert contracts, just make them out in the open. Just be upfront about it. It's like, wait, I think I was tied to this and that's on me. And that's a great move of just like, I'm disappointed because I was hoping if I would have done this, it would have created this, because that's at least putting words to something both of you were reading and was acting. And that helps diminish some of the tension and then intensify the tension, because now you're facing this gap between us that we all have anyway.
Yeah, intensify a different tension, right?
Yeah, because that tension is present between us. It's in every single couple. You and I have this.
Yeah.
I mean, we could come across on episodes where it feels like it's like we're in a good, this is not a problem for us. Right.
Yeah, we have the same thing.
Absolutely. It's just one of the things I've learned in this journey with you is, how do I just be more open about these things? Because they're already there anyway. It's the dynamic we've got. We can't necessarily solve it.
Yeah, we call them out now.
But we can align towards it better.
Yeah.
And so this is that same kind of concept of being able to do that starts to create a more high value spouse. And high value spouses, the way I'm thinking this is that draws the other spouse to you a little bit, because they see the wholeness of them, the genuineness of them, the solidness of them, the goodness of them, the generosities of them, the compassions of them. That usually draws people in. And that's how we then can start to try to pivot this to where we're heading in the extended content of, okay, so if I'm doing this in a lot of areas of life, now how do I handle if it still doesn't cultivate what I'm hoping it'll cultivate? So if you want to hear more about that, smr.fm/academy to join us in the